So, all right. Why don't we get this baby started here? So, hello, everybody. My name is Alan Sitomer. I'm joined here by the fabulous Richie Conti and Coach Ben right now. So Richie is in the Massachusetts area, just outside of Boston, if I'm correct. And I think Coach Ben is coming at you from New York. I'm in California right now. But we are all unified in one great purpose, which is to put on a fantastic webinar that is around the game and make approach. So a little bit of background on us right here. I am a former California Teacher of the Year award winner. I started this little company called Mastery Coding to really turn gamers into makers right there. I met Richie, who was a college esports captain of a team that did really, really well. He came on as a curriculum developer for us, and we got an esports program rolling right there. And then he brought on Coach Ben, who we took from the classroom as well, who has used gaming as a vehicle to engage his students, to amplify their academic performance, as well as their just sense of community and inclusivity. And I think that the two gentlemen on the broadcast with me today almost epitomize the opportunities that await for students who do kind of get funneled into the game and make approach to education. It's about, just meeting kids where they are and then giving them opportunities. So before I go too much further, let's start with a quick poll right here. So question number one, and you can just answer through Zoom right here. Anybody have students that are obsessed with gaming, that are just like, this is what they live for right here? And question number two, what are some of your students' favorite games right there? So Richie, why don't we start with you and just, what's your favorite game, Richie? And tell us a little bit about what keeps you up late at night working the controller.
Oh man, well, maybe right now is chess. I've been getting really, really into chess recently. Although Overwatch was the game that I competed in college, Overwatch 2, sort of with a resurgence, I've picked it back up again and have been enjoying Overwatch 2, but I think chess takes the cake for me right now. But it's so hard to say because, your favorite game changes over time. And maybe when I was much younger, my choice would have been Roller Coaster Tycoon. That was sort of the game that set me off on the path of wanting to understand how games work and really take apart the mechanics within them. So I love sort of those simulation management types games as well.
All right, Coach Ben, how about you? What's on your list there?
Well, I've been playing games like Hearthstone, League of Legends for almost 10 years now. But with the release of Overwatch 2 and a lot of Rich's influence, that has been the game that's been keeping me up late recently.
All right. Yep. Overwatch 2 just dropped in October, right? Just came out. So yeah, that's awesome. And I know that there's some people, it's Fortnite and Rocket League, and we've got all kinds of games that we'll talk about today. So let's go over what today's agenda looks like. You gentlemen want to kind of walk us through what everybody can look forward to?
Absolutely.
Gladly.
So first off, we do have the benefits of gaming.
Then we're going to go into what it's like to seize the power of the gamer to maker platform.
Then we'll be talking about how gaming can become a pathway to hard skills.
And of course, making sure that we go over how gaming develops the soft skills that are needed for success in school, work, and life. Can't miss that enough.
And then finally, we'll be talking about 3 action items that you all can take to bring the benefits of esports to your students.
All right, excellent. So let's just jump right into the benefits of gaming. Now, it's easy to say, the kids are taking benefit, but where's the research? Where's the data? Are we coming at this from a perspective that is actually backed up by sort of reputable institutions? And if you look right here, we see that there is a new report that just came out from the NIH, the National Institute of Health. And what they're finding is that video gaming and improve cognitive performance in children, it's actually probably the opposite of the narrative that has almost dominated the headlines for kind of the past 10 years. It's like gaming, it's melting their brains, it's causing all these problems, but it's actually not true. They're showing that students are demonstrating a lot of mental they're just deriving mental benefits in a host of ways, whether I love how they use cortical pathways and things like that, and brain-based learning and neurological connections and axon potentials firing off, whatever the reasoning is. One thing to recognize is that when you talk about bringing an academic esports program into your school and then using that energy to convert your gamers into makers, you're really at the front end of meeting students where they are. We're going to spend a little more time talking about it, but Richie, maybe can you talk about how they synthesize together in esports and why some of this research might actually be true?
Yeah. Well, it makes a ton of sense because in esports, students are actually competing both mentally and physically. So if you look at a graph like this in terms of perceived importance, right, traditional sports may be more physical than something more cognitive like chess, right? Both are sports. In traditional sports, you're using motor function, hand-eye coordination, physicality. In chess, it's more about thinking, strategizing, taking your time, calculating. And esports is really in a sweet spot between the two of these things. And if we look at an actual example, right, I mentioned chess, where you're calculating, you have to look at your opponent's moves, you develop strategies, you have to act and react based on what your opponent's doing and your set plans. Well, the same thing happens in esports. And here on the right, we can see an actual analysis from some coaches in a live VOD review looking at a tournament, and again looking at these same sort of strategical decision-making things that have to go into esports as well, right? In esports even, it can be argued that it might even be more strenuous, because in chess, you can take your time, right? It's a turn-based game. You have 20 minutes to do the calculations, where in esports and in Overwatch, it's quick. It's fast-paced. You're doing these calculations. You're making these decisions instantly, moment to moment, and you have to update your plans. And so it really does combine the sort of strategic, decision-making, cognitive-heavy chess with something that is instant, quick reaction time, quick physicality, motor functions, hand-eye coordination, like in traditional sports. So
I have a question for Coach Ben. Coach Ben, is sort of a gamer maker approach in esports in general, is this applicable to all students, or are we just talking about sort of just the regular kids? But we have so many diverse needs in our schools. How is it that kind of esports might be used to help service all students in terms of learning objectives?
Well, the easy answer to that is that it is an even playing field. And there's this excellent article that came out from the Asperger Autism Network of how video games benefit students with special needs. And they do this in a variety of ways. So many people on the autism spectrum, they can benefit a lot from just picking up the controller, because they're able to connect with other students and develop social skills with real and meaningful connections. They're able to learn valuable SEL skills, such as emotional regulation and frustration tolerance. They're able to develop crucial physical skills, such as fine motor control and hand-eye coordination, like Richie was talking about previously. And they're able to expand their interests and become a lot more adaptable and flexible, as opposed to just having a single interest that they are, kind of fine-tuned on. I had one student that I was working with, and he was restricted to a wheelchair. He didn't have any motor control besides fine motor. He had no gross motor control. And all he could do was use his hands. And that's how he was able to get around with his wheelchair. But there was no ability for him to ever participate in a traditional athletic. That just wasn't an option. And it often felt very difficult for him to navigate social situations because he was restricted to that wheelchair. And it did always make him feel like an outsider. But then when he started participating in esports, not only was nobody aware of him having any form of disability because they were all playing completely virtually, but on top of that, he was pretty darn good. And he actually was so good, even though all he could do was move his hands, that he got flown out to the national tournament and he got to participate on the big stage right next to all of the strongest players, the neurotypical players, anybody, because this creates an even playing field for all students.
So that's what is, I think, pretty remarkable that I'm seeing in the world of esports. I mean, where else do you see sort of the star basketball player side by side with a student with special needs, and yet the stud hoops player has no advantage? He could be getting the floor mopped with him right there. I mean, and this is true. Esports is such a great equalizer because, certain sports, the physicality, height means height, weight, power, strength, right? Now, in esports, somebody with this body type and this body type, no great difference right here. Or you think about even interpersonal dispositions right there. The most popular student in school versus this introvert. But with esports, there's such a wonderful democratization of opportunity where it just, what I love about it, I guess, is that we're speaking to inclusivity right now. We're speaking to community right now. We're speaking to equity. And in education across the spectrum, these are words that are aspired towards, but when you actually are working in schools and there's systemic sort of, wheels in motion and things like that, it's really hard to find an arena where you can authentically provide these opportunities for students. And in the world of esports, I don't know that there's any area that provides more opportunity for the inclusivity, the community, and the equitable means of participation than esports. And that's why I think we want to really emphasize right now and take you into the next stage of today's presentation about how to sort of seize the power of turning gamers into makers. And this is where really, this is important stuff, okay? And why? Let's take a look at what's going on, okay? The NAEP scores were just released. If you're not familiar with the NAEP scores, this is our nation's report card. And we just witnessed the largest ever score declines, okay? We've never seen it fall off the cliff this poorly. And if it doesn't take a genius to see why the great declines right there. First reason, probably something that affected every person who's joining us today. In some way, shape, or form, the pandemic just threw a curveball for which no one was ready. And clearly, we didn't meet our aims. We tried, but we just didn't pull it off. Secondarily, okay, one thing we didn't quite foresee is how the pandemic would create sort of a ripple effect of negative attendance. So students just stopped showing up to their Zoom meetings in class and things like that when it was online, but then they just kind of haven't even really energetically returned to school. And then the return to school has been exceptionally characterized by a wild disengagement. And if you're in the classrooms and you're working with kids and you're speaking with teachers and principals and things like that, it's almost as if these students have forgotten how to behave, participate, and it's both the soft skills and the hard skills were negatively affected and things like that. And we've really set up ourselves to have this immense problem in our core academic areas right now. And the befuddling question afoot to all of us is, what are we gonna do? Where can we turn to meet these kids where they are and make a positive impact? Richie, you got any thoughts on that?
Well, according to Pew Research, 92% of teenagers play video games in some form or another. And this might be a way that we can reach and engage these students. Some more statistics, 50% of teens reported playing games yesterday. So this is active. This is something that students are doing often. So again, I think this is one great way to reach students.
And another aspect of this is just how big esports are becoming when it comes to the world of media. Because it used to be that a new movie came out, everybody was excited for it. Or, it's the weekend, let's go watch the game that's on TV. But now we're seeing that esports are actually drawing in as much viewership, if not even more. So on the graph in front of you, you can see that League of Legends, which is just one of the esports out of the dozen that are popular right now, it's actually surpassed Major League Baseball, the NBA, and the NHL in viewership because so many students, so many kids, and even a growing number of adults find this fascinating and they want to watch it. They're excited by it. Not only is it getting viewership within the world of media, but it's also getting a lot of attention within the collegiate space as well. There's now over 300 universities that offer esports scholarships, and this number is growing every year. In fact, my younger brother got a full ride to the school of his dreams. It's called Northwood University, off of playing Rocket League, which is an esport based around playing soccer with cars.
Wait, he got a full ride to college to play Rocket League. Is that what? I mean, I'm a parent and I'm still in disbelief that this is a vehicle to not only get into college but pay for college.
And he absolutely stunned everybody. I mean, I couldn't believe that he had done this. I knew he was spending a lot of time on this game, that he was competing, but I had no expectation that it would go to this level. I didn't even know that you could go to this level until he talked to me about the scholarship opportunities that he was getting. And a lot of this stems from the colleges wanting students who are going to go into a STEM field. And what we find is that of these students who participate in esports, over 50% of them go into some form of STEM field. And what we've known for over a decade, if not two at this point, is that we need more and more professionals in the world of STEM within the United States. That is something that we are always pursuing and we want to channel. And when the colleges saw these statistics that esports was a funnel for STEM, they realized that this was actually a way that they could get students into their programs and keep them motivated and engaged in their studies, so that when they graduated, they would be professionals that could go into the world and be ready to make a difference.
That's incredible. I read an article today about some billionaire CEO tycoon who just said that a more precious commodity than cobalt or lithium is programmers right now, or STEM students and things like that. He said there's 7 billion people on planet Earth and only like 25 million of them know how to code. Just astronomical how hungry colleges and the workforce are for the kind of talent we're talking about turning gamers into makers who can step in and sort of just change the world. That's what we're really discussing here.
So the question is, how does gaming relate to these sort of STEM hard skills? And so that's what we'll look at next. And if we were to break down the gamer to maker pathway into step-by-step process, it might look something like this, right? We're meeting the students where they're at the passion, the thing that 92% of them are already doing, and 50% of them were doing yesterday again. And then what we want to do is awaken their curiosity for how these games actually work, or how these games go into broadcast, into a tournament, how it becomes a leading industry giant, right? And once we can awaken that curiosity for something they're already passionate about, well, the next step is easy. They'll already want to learn the skills about it. They want to learn about how they can implement these things. And then the next step is obtaining a certification and eventually obtaining a career in something that they love and are passionate about. And we're not only talking about the game developers, right? In the world of esports, there are numerous different orbital career paths. So there are, right, people that create the games. But if you think of something like the NFL or the NBA, right, there are huge industries and thousands of careers that are created by these fields. So it's legal, it's operations, it's broadcasting, marketing, graphic design, and all these different areas. Now, primarily, one of the ones that we'll be talking about today is the game development and the game creation. And personally, that's the pathway that I took in order to get the career that I'm in here, because I loved games and I wanted to learn how games were made. So I went to school for game development and found a career in creating curriculum to teach students how to make games. And so in our programs, we talk about how games are made from behind the scenes. And every single game is made with code. It's made with meshes, hitboxes, hurtboxes, and understanding how these games are made can help the players to play these games better. So when we talk about hitboxes and hurtboxes, these are elements of gameplay as well as elements of how the games are actually designed and created, and understanding really what's going on underneath the hood and behind the curtain helps players to play better, make more informed decisions, and all these things. And once again, like I mentioned, I went down the pathway of learning to code through creating games because that's what I was passionate about. And I truly believe that learning coding with game development is one of the best ways to approach the topic. Here you can see a series of different projects and the very in-depth technical computer science elements that go into making even, some simple games. It does go very deep. And when we talk about the hard skills, all of these games require technical skills and know-how in order to create. So we talked about meshes earlier. In order to create the meshes, you use a program like Blender to create the 3D models. Then you have to bring those models into a program like Unity to position them in a level, have them connect to one another. And then in order to make it all work, you got to code. And that's where the C# comes in. That's where the programming comes in. And that's where you can get those interactions between the objects in the given game. And now these are all, real industry skills in the world of game development, but they're also real industry skills in other areas as well, in other industries. So Blender can be used for special effects. Unity can be used for architecture. And C# programming, it's a programming language that's not only used in Unity, it's also used in many other places as well. And when we talk about certifications, again, these are just some of the certifications that align to some of those tools we were just looking at. Certified user, certified programmer, artist, game developer. These are all sort of real industry certifications that students can earn in high school to help them either get into colleges or even future careers. I think you're muted, Alan, just as a heads up.
Hey, there you go. I was going to say, Richie, that's great stuff, and this is kind of deep into sort of that universe, but I want to back it up for a second. And I think that before anything, we have to expose kids to having a vision that their passion can become their pursuit right there. That's one of the things that sort of a lot of people don't realize is that because their parents have never done this before, because they don't know anybody that's ever done this before, they're not being availed of just seeing themselves being able to participate in this world. So as our programs and so forth, and there's so many ways to learn this stuff that we're talking about, how to move into these pathways where you can become an IT engineer, a software programmer, a game designer, an artist, and things like that. But before that, you got to sort of believe it before you see it. And somebody has to inculcate this vision that you can do it. And especially this pertains to students who are not succeeding in traditional core 4 academics. The idea of history, science, English, and math, we've been doing that over. And where does the student who's not the valedictorian, jump in? And where are the students who are sort of at the fringe in some sort of way right there, and they don't feel connected? This is wide open and available to them. And while we talk about college scholarships and amazing opportunities, the fact of the matter is that if you can build these games or draw this art or manifest some skill in this world, you will find a lot of people willing to hire you for your talent right there. But it's incumbent upon us as educators and in the school system to paint this vision for students that, hey, dude, like you can do this right here. And even if you're not crushing it when it comes to spitting back facts about agriculture in Mesopotamia, that has no bearing on your ability to jump right in and create the next League of Legends or something like that. So that's what is so dynamic about these opportunities for me, is how vision, once a kid realizes wait a minute, could I do this right here? And starting it, the younger, the better, right? High school, great. Middle school, better. Elementary school, fantastic, right? Because you kind of give the opportunity for students to start to pursue meaningful education right there. And I think that's where I want to throw it back over to you, Coach Ben, and talk about the relationship of meaningfulness and some of the soft skills and how that plays out in turning gamers into makers.
Definitely. And I know we've talked a lot about the hard skills that you can get when it comes to certifications and careers. But one of the things that I love about esports is how well it develops the soft skills as well. And one of the things that it focuses really nicely on are the 5 C's, where students get to work as a team and develop their collaborative skills. Students have to come up with new and creative ways to outwit their opponents, as well as how to design their own games. The students get to practice effective and concise communication when they play with a team, because the more you talk, the harder it is for everybody else on the team to be heard. So it's all about how can you use the least words to give the most message or the biggest message. The students have to constantly think of new ways that they approach situations and develop that critical thinking aspect that we typically think should be done within a classroom. But there's a lot of ways we can do this outside of the classroom as well. And lastly, it builds character, because anytime that you participate on a team or with your peers, it's going to give you an opportunity to improve yourself as a person. And one of the ways that we have a big focus on that in the world of esports is with non-toxic gaming, where we use what we call a PMA, or a positive mental attitude. We want students to realize that it's all about the way that they think about themselves and they think about others that's going to affect the situation that they're in. It's all about supporting their teammates and caring for each other's mental health. These skills are incredibly important to teach them early. I know that we were talking about what about middle school? That's a great time to do it. Even if we can get them talking about PMA as early as elementary, that's going to help them be prepared for each new phase of their life. There's this excellent interaction that I saw with one of the teams that we were watching during a tournament, where one student was really slipping when it came to his PMA. He started getting very negative toward himself, and he started playing poorly, and his comms kind of disappeared. He got really quiet. And the other students who were watching, who actually weren't even on his team, they were on separate teams. So generally you'd think they were rooting against him. When they saw that he was kind of slipping at this point, they wanted to boost him up. They wanted to make this an environment that he felt he could do the best he could, because they wanted a fair and even competition, and they wanted to see everybody try their best. And so we saw students from a variety of different teams typing in chat, "You got this, Gravy," or "Let's go, Gravy," because Gravy was the name of the student, or at least the name that he had chosen within his game to represent himself. And for me, that was like amazing. Usually in athletics, we see teams rooting against each other. This is one of the first times I've seen the opponent's teams rooting for a player because they just want everybody to do their best. Another aspect that we always focus on, and like I said, it kind of ties in, is the community, that aspect of esports. And it provides a lot of engagement to otherwise disenfranchised students. About 80% of esports students didn't participate in other extracurriculars, meaning that they didn't have something that they were excited about school if they weren't excited about their academics. So they'd go to school, they'd kind of clock their hours, and they'd go home and they would play video games. Well, when we can provide that type of community and engagement in a school, all of a sudden now they have something to look forward to. They don't need to participate on the basketball team, the football team, or go to AV club to be excited about some extracurricular at school. And what we see is that we have so many students who build lasting friendships through esports who hadn't had that place that they felt confident they could make friends before. One of my absolute favorite quotes from one of our programs is a student that you can see on the top left here. Says, this is completely off topic, but is this what friendship feels like? Because this is the first time he had made that meaningful connection with another person. And now he started having this feeling of, wow, I'm accepted, and not only accepted, but I'm loved for the things that I am and for the things that I love too. So it gives them this place that they can share what they care about and really feel that they can connect with others.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome, Ben. Really, and who doesn't love those tales from the classroom and real kids and seeing what they're doing? And there's just tens of thousands of students that are hungering for what we're talking about right here. So I love that kind of you're really making it real and how it affects a single student's life. That is great right there. So why don't we go to, all right, what can you do, right? It's like, what action steps can be taken? So I think that the first action step that can be taken is overtly recognizing how gaming can be a force for good in your student's life and in the culture of your school and so forth. We see that gaming is absolutely providing a pathway to STEM education. We've talked about the SEL. We've talked about college scholarships, workforce internships, industry-based certification. So I saw Janine dropped a question in the chat right there about, can middle school students actually earn certifications? The answer is absolutely. And in 2023, I'm really happy to announce that we have middle school courses that students can earn accreditation in HTML, CSS, and so forth. So yes, middle school students can. Now, of course, we're not putting it out there that 13-year-olds are ready to, hit the job market, get those six-figure jobs that are waiting for them at Google type of thing. That's not the argument that we're saying. But can they absolutely earn accredited certifications that mean something outside of the K through 12 walls? 100%. And that's what opens up the notion of dynamic careers, emerging technologies. I mean, this is funneling into, if you think about health tech, you think about fintech, you think about, how the oceans are using technology to heal. You think about how we're looking for new energy sources. You think about how we're looking to feed people and agriculture. One of the things that is so dynamic, I'm not sure if anybody's going to be out at ACTE, but the last year I was speaking to somebody who they were talking about bovine studies and how they are improving the means of getting fertilizer to help the land to grow more organic foods in a more efficient way. And I'm like, cow poop isn't cow poop anymore right there. I mean, it is just 100% that all of the things that we're speaking about right here today in industries everywhere are on the table if you can awaken your students to this is available. Whatever sort of we're looking for thinkers and people to stretch and reimagine and redefine. And the final thing on this list right here, if you can do it, they will pay you for it. right? They will pay you for it quite handsomely. So, during the pandemic, there were a lot of people that lost their jobs. People with the skills that we're talking about, they were being FedExed foot massagers and more comfortable chairs to retain their positions in the workforce. Okay. If there's one thing that the pandemic proved out right here, is that if you're talking about seeking stability and solid paychecks and health insurance and 401k plans and things like that, there's a lot of positive energy around looking towards some of the careers that we are speaking about right here. What else can be done, Ben?
Well, for our second action item, it's really just important to set yourself up for long-term success, because esports isn't going anywhere. You can do this with 3 main ingredients. This is important to obtain the tools that you need to turn your gamers into makers. So the first tool, and this is one of the most important, is to have the appropriate hardware and software. If you're not able to actually log into the programs needed, you won't be able to go any further. But once you log in, you'll need that second step, which is the actual standards-based curriculum, so that you know what you're going into and how to teach it. And for anything that you're doing, especially when it's a new venture, something that you're not experienced in, you'll need both professional development and support. So when it comes to the hardware side of things, we're seeing that some schools are really just going all out. They're building amazing computer labs. They've got these fancy gaming chairs. They've got the whole desk setup. They've got these huge setups, and they're so fun. I mean, the students love them. This is something that they're excited for. And when they get to walk into this type of ambiance, it sets the stage for them to be excited. So we've seen a lot of computer labs that are similar to the image on the left, but we're even starting to see some schools use incredible new technology like the ZSpace Inspire on the right. The thing that blows my mind is that this is not VR. This is actually just a computer in front of you. You don't need any headset on or anything. I can't imagine if I'd been able to have access to something like that when I was a student. Now, our second thing that we needed, of course, was our standards-based curriculum. And when it's standard-based, that means that there's going to be a couple things that you want to look for. One, you want to make sure that it is easy to teach with no previous experience. Many teachers who are getting into teaching esports within their schools, they may have some experience with games, and some even don't, but almost none of them have experience with competitive gaming, with esports. And so having curriculum that doesn't require previous experience is essential. The second thing is you need something that has just turnkey implementation. You don't want something that's going to be difficult for you to use and something that you're going to have trouble getting off the ground. You want something that you can just take a look at and start using immediately. And of course, for that, you're going to need that ongoing support, because this is something that's going to be new for the teachers, and they're going to need a network that works with them to make sure that they're using it to the best of its potential. Because if you can do these first 3, then you are going to guarantee high engagement from your students. And when you get the high engagement from your students, you'll get the data-driven results that all of the admins and the principals and superintendents in the school are really looking for. And our last thing on the list was the professional development and support. When you get professional development and support, you want to make sure that you're hitting all 5 steps. You need to make sure that they are assessing readiness, that they're actually working together with you to create a plan based on what you already have. You need to make sure that you have some type of administrative and tech setup support so that you can figure out how to use these new tools that you've been given access to. You'll need that actual professional development from somebody who's a professional within this field to start walking you through, okay, what are the steps? How do you move forward? And then once you get things off the ground, you'll need the ongoing support to make sure that A, things are running smoothly, because it's technology. In the end, we all know that we have technology issues and sometimes things have hiccups. You have an ongoing support team. They're able to work with you through that. But they're also there to be able to help you if you have questions about the curriculum that maybe you didn't know right when you got the professional development at the start, because you hadn't looked at the final unit when you were just trying to get off the ground. And then the last step is having solid feedback. You always want a team that is getting your feedback as a teacher to see how they can continue to iterate their process and make this something that keeps improving and becoming better for the next user and for yourself when you come back the next year.
And the final action item that we'll be talking about today is to foster that maker mindset and put your students on the pathway to real industry skills, certifications, and portfolios. On the right, again, we have that graphic of all the orbital different careers that can be connected to the world and the industry of esports. And although we primarily were looking at sort of these three tools in the realm of game development, there are real industry skills that can be connected in different places, like in broadcasting through learning tools like OBS, or in media, like learning video editing tools like DaVinci Resolve. There's many different connection points in the realm of esports to other industries. And once again, to industry certifications. I like stats, so here's a one last stat for you here today. 91% of HR managers report certification as being an important criteria for hiring. And again, these are some of the certifications that are related to game development and coding and programming, but there are others in the realm of broadcasting, operations, media as well. And in terms of getting these certifications, that's not the only part, because although certifications will get you the interview, portfolios are really what gets you the job in the end. So whatever curriculum your students are working in, make sure that it is project-based and they're building up many different projects that they can add to something like a GitHub portfolio, which you can see there on the right, which is sort of an industry standard for sharing your projects with colleges or different recruiting agencies. Now, in terms of the curriculum, you want to make sure that the curriculum supports teachers, that it has the turnkey implementation, has that student engagement, and is research-based.
That's great. That's great. So let me hit, there are a couple of really keen questions that were asked, and I would encourage anybody, if they have questions, to toss them in right now. But one of the things we talked about, I saw earlier, was the parents, right? Parents, school board, the administrators, and things like that. How do you win them over? How do you convince them that there is merit? How do you convince them that turning gamers into makers is a real thing instead of turning gamers into mushers and couch potatoes, which seems to be the phenomenon that they're most afraid of for their kids? So one of the things that we can offer, and we'll sort of at the end, we'll give an email and stuff, you can reach out, is that the team has put together a white paper on the benefits of academic esports. And I think this thing is something 20-something pages long, and it's one of the most convincing and compelling pieces of evidence that you can share with people who might have some skepticism. And by the way, I don't have any problem with skepticism. There's nothing wrong with it. They're trying to make positive choices for children. Is this legit? Is this real? Or is this about, serving cotton candy for breakfast and telling me that no, there's high value in the caloric content, right? That we can understand why people are like, they want to, dot I's, cross T's, and measure twice, cut once. Nothing wrong with that. So one thing that I would strongly encourage for anybody who is interested is to take a look at the white paper and see if there's anything there that can be sort of an arrow in your quiver to help convince people to make this shift. Because as we saw with the NAEP scores and things like that, if you always do what you always did, you'll always get what you always got. Right there. And what is it that literally is going to be presented to these 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kids that has a chance of really resonating in a meaningful way? And you saw the percentages, the numbers, the energy around it. There's a lot of people that I think are nodding their head right now saying, you know what? this is defensible right now. Is this working? Is it proven? Are there implementations that are successfully going on other campuses? So the answer is yes, 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 and yes right here. And we would encourage you to investigate and take a deep look and ask the hard questions, because people who don't give good answers to the hard questions, they're hiding something. And that's another thing to really scrutinize. We encourage it right here across the board. Now, there are some questions about the hardware and the computers and things like that. So one of the things that is out there is the idea that you're going to need to have the most powerful, expensive computer lab filled with the latest and greatest toys that can make the students levitate, that kind of thing. That's not true. There's a lot of great curriculum out there that functions on a Chromebook right there. Kids can learn these skills. Kids can earn the certifications. Kids can just, with a device that accesses the cloud, there's curriculum available that can get them started. Now, obviously, the more sophisticated the skills you're building, sort of the better the tools you need. But that's true in any industry, like you can go to the hardware store and buy a hammer, but if I'm going to build a skyscraper, I'm going to need a deeper toolkit in order to get the job done. If I'm a neurologist right there, of course I can have a penknife, but having an array of surgical tools is going to be necessary. So the more sophisticated the learning gets, probably the more sophisticated the need for tools. But do you need the high-end tools to get out of the gate? No, 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 no. And then there's another question right there that speaks to how the soft skills can relate to, is this STEM exclusively, or is this STEAM as well? And can you bring in the arts? So Richie or Ben, do you want to speak to how the humanities can play a role in turning gamers into makers?
Certainly. One of the big aspects for the arts within anything esports or gaming related is the actual creation of the assets for that game. There is just as large a team working on the art assets as there is a team working on the actual game development and the way that the game has mechanics and functions. That team is always large and always is looking for expansion, because if you are a successful artist, then there's always going to be more and more work for you in a world where all of the digital art is required to be created and then maintained and updated, because every year or every 2 years, the game designers want to update and make sure that they're using the highest quality artwork, the highest quality meshes, so that the game can function at a higher level than it previously was able to. Sorry, go ahead, Rich. I saw you unmuted.
Yeah, and it's not just like, the creating of the art assets and the color theory as well. One element that is often overlooked is the sound in games too. Music, game music and sound effects, and all of that as well is a massive part of the games industry. And what makes some of your favorite games is a lot of sound too.
All right, great. So let's see here. We get a couple of questions about grants and things like that. There's all kinds of federal and state funds floating around out there that you can, for hardware, for software, for improving STEM performance, for taking a stab at trying to get interventions going, for social emotional learning and things like that. So I can't really speak to any specific grant, because there's like $1 billion floating around in so many different channels right there. But if you send an email with some specific you know, about what state you're in and maybe what level you're teaching, if it's middle school, high school, and things like that, we can have somebody reach out to you and try to help out and see what's going on that front right there. So, and then college scholarships, sort of the same thing. The scholarships are there. The universe is growing. At Mastery Coding in our esports program, we absolutely aspire to be a resource for you. So you can reach out to us, and if it's a certain game you're interested in, certain region of the country, certain size school, there's so many mitigating factors that go into sort of matching up students with schools, with opportunities, what do they want to study and things like that. But we're happy to help try to broker that for you over at Mastery Coding. So having said that, I think it's now time. Some lucky person is going to get a $50 gift card right here. I do understand that Zoom has had some outages during the course of this webinar right now. So we're going to postpone making that announcement until the powers that be make sure that whoever we've chosen is part of this right here, things like that. So that will be emailed out. So I don't have a name of a lucky winner right at this point, but I do promise somebody's going to get the $50. It could be Richie, could be Ben, for all I know. No, I think we'll give it to somebody who showed up. What do you guys think? Better idea? So anyway, we're coming up on been here just under an hour right now. I would encourage anybody to, if they have further questions, we have our master of ceremonies behind the scene, Peter at masterycoding.com. We'll be happy to get back to you if we can provide some further resources, assistance, and things like that. And for now, I'm Alan, that's Ben, that's Richie, and I want to say thank you very much for joining us and signing off. Okay.